York 4 to 7, presented by Verizon. I'm your host, Niki Lattarulo. Today, we are joined by co-host of SNY's The Mets Pod, Joe DeMayo, and WFAN's Emmanuel Berbari for a special prospects edition of the show, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this show. Let's see how many topics we will cover today. It's 5 topics for the 5 train. How it'll work is you'll each get 5 Mets or Yankees prospects to tell us all about. So, Joe, we'll start with you. The first Mets prospect is Nolan McLean, right-handed pitcher at AAA Syracuse as of right now. What information can you give us about him?
Nolan McLean was the Mets' third-round pick in the 2023 draft out of Oklahoma State. He was a two-way player in college, both DH and relief pitcher, and he actually carried that over in the Pro Bowl, which garnered the nickname Cowboy Ohtani that we famously had on the Mets pod. But unfortunately, that nickname had to go because he gave up hitting last summer. He is focusing exclusively on pitching and specifically on starting pitching for the first time really in his life. And he's rose through the ranks up at the AAA level. He has a 2.25 ERA. And when you think about him from like a scouting standpoint, this is a hyper athlete on the mound with a natural ability to spin the baseball. He throws both a four seam and a sinker, average in the mid 90s. It'll touch 97 or 98. He's gotten up to a 57% ground ball rate at the AAA level. But the bread and butter is the sweeper. It's one of the best pitches in all of minor league baseball. If you watch highlights, it's like a wiffle ball going out there. So I think McLean is a very exciting prospect. I had him number 3 in the system heading into the season. And I honestly think he's going to make an impact for the Mets at some point in the second half.
A lot of help there at pitcher. So it would be nice to see a young prospect come up and make some noise. All right, Emmanuel, let's go to your first Yankees prospect, right-handed pitcher Ben Hess, currently in High A, Hudson Valley. What can you tell us about him?
Ben Hess is sort of this behemoth. When you look at him, you think this is a guy who could really compete at the big league level. 6'5", 255. That's one presence in Ben Hess. Yankees drafted him in the first round last year out of Alabama. And right now, I'd say the top thing he's looking to hone before he makes that next jump to Double-A Somerset would be his command. He's got 4 pitches that he can use pretty well. Right now, the pitchability is impressive. He's got a good curveball. He's working on developing a slider. So that 4th pitch is more of a work in progress. He's a competitor. So when his command isn't where he wants it to be, he's still in a spot where it's impressive for his age at 22 years old. He can grind you through an outing. But I think that next step would be the consistent command. But the Yankees, of course, drafting him in the first round, and the strides he's already made and that fierce competitiveness, they're really high on Ben Hess. It's just about that next level of maturation and execution. And then you'll see him at Double-A. And then all of a sudden, once you get through Double-A and you master that level, you're on the doorstep of the big league. So right now, it's still early with Ben Hess, but these prospects, especially fresh out of college, who make those early impressions, they can jump on you pretty quickly.
Future definitely bright for Ben Hess. Let's move on to our second prospects, 2 infielders for the Mets and Yankees. Joe, shortstop Jett Williams, currently Double-A Binghamton. I've heard this name a ton. What can you tell us about him?
Jett was my guy going back to the 2022 draft, and the Mets took him in the first round out of a high school in Texas. And this is one of those guys that, everyone throws out the Jose Altuves and things like that because he is 5'6", 5'7" on a good day if he's wearing his cleats, maybe. But he fills out his body. It's a really thick lower half. He's a real strong kid. He missed most of the 2024 season with a wrist surgery, so he was out for most of the year, and that kind of dinged his prospect, I guess, shine just out of sight, out of mind a little bit. But coming back in 2025, he just looks like the guy that was the number 1 prospect in the Mets system. If you go back to May 1st, Jett is hitting 290 with a 908 OPS, 22 extra base hits, 19 stolen bases, almost as many walks as strikeouts. So really, Jett is just back to being Jett. And he has the chance to be a dynamic up the middle player. He's played shortstop, second base, center field at the Double-A level. And he's a guy that I envision in the future hitting at or near the top of an order.
Love a guy named Jett that could steal some bases. Almost
you better be fast if you have that name.
Yeah. You got to be fast if you have it. Exactly. All right, let's talk about Yankees infielder George Lombard Jr. He started the year in High A, was then called up to Double-A Somerset. Emmanuel, what do you know about him?
Yeah, George Lombard Jr., the Yankees have always been excited about him, but if you're thinking about it like a stock market graph, the stock has been way up over the last 6 months or so. People are looking at this guy as superstar caliber potential. And you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but that's what he's shown and made that impression, most importantly, in spring training, in a big league camp where all the tools were on full display. And he's 19 years old. So again, you don't want to jump way too far ahead of yourself, but he's a five tool type of athlete and a guy you could project as your future big league third baseman, depending on what happens. He's a natural shortstop, but right now the Yankees are eyeing, you have Anthony Volpe as your everyday shortstop. Maybe George Lombard Jr. could factor in the not too distant future as your third baseman. Now, when they started him in high A Hudson Valley this year, there was a question, should we just shoot him right to double A because of the impression he made in spring training? They figured, all right, let's reel it back a little bit, put him in high A, and his numbers over those first couple of weeks at Hudson Valley were ridiculous. They jumped off the page at you. He's doing everything right. He was clearly too good for that level. He's gone to double A at 19 years old, and he's had some bumps in the road, at least from an offensive standpoint. But every night, if you just watch some of his highlights, you see the tools. You see some of the things defensively that can make him a future star. Now it's a question of adjusting to the level offensively. The thing that encourages me, despite the struggles, his on base percentage is still really high. He has a 340 on base despite those struggles. So you could see a world where eventually he's in the big leagues. He goes through some struggles, but his plate discipline is still in a spot where he could be a productive player, even when he struggles. So I think the Yankees think the sky is the limit for this guy. It's about taking that next step. Once he conquers double A, 19, 20 years old, he'll be on the cusp of big leagues.
Like it's been so long since the Yankees have had a third baseman that's been there for years and years. So if you have Volpe and then him at third, I think that would be a very bright future for the Yankees. Let's move into the outfield. The third prospect for the Mets is Carson Bench. What can you tell us about him, Joe?
The second Oklahoma State Cowboy. He was the Mets' first round pick last year off Oklahoma State. And I could tell you that heading into the draft process, the Mets were very hopeful that Benj would make it to them at number 19. This was really who they wanted all along, and it worked out in their favor. And ultimately, he's coming to pro ball. He was a two-way player in college, just like McLean was, but he gave up two-way right away. There was no sign of even trying pitching at the next level. But he went to high A Brooklyn and did exactly what I would expect an advanced college hitter to do. He hit 302. He had an OPS just about 900. It's an advanced plate discipline. He is a strong kid. He's able to muscle the ball to left field with exit velocities. A lot of his power now is center and to the left side. What he's going to need to grow as he moves through to the upper levels is that ability to pull the ball with authority. But the Mets are really excited about the athlete that they got. They've been trotting him out in center field, which is not something he did in college. And he's doing just fine out there. So the Mets are going to keep riding him as a center fielder and see if that could be an option long term, with a fallback of being a corner outfielder with a plus arm that used to be 96 miles an hour off the mound. I think he's going to be a guy that can play all three outfield spots. And I think he's going to enter the big league conversation sometime in 2026.
Yeah, we know the Mets as of right now really can use a center fielder. So the sooner they can get him up here, the better. Let's talk about one of the Yankees' biggest, I feel like the prospect that we hear the most about, Spencer Jones, just was promoted to AAA and hit a home run his first at bat. Emmanuel, how excited are you about this guy? And do you think the hype is real?
I think the hype is still real with Spencer Jones. And it's funny that we're following up with Spencer Jones after we just talked about George Lombard, because I feel like the progression of somebody like Lombard is taking some of the shine off Spencer Jones, and not really justifiably in my mind, because Spencer Jones's strikeout rates, we understand they've been too high throughout the minors, but he's sort of come in as a raw talent and made serious efforts to refine his game. And we're seeing some of those strides year after year after year. And then this narrative becomes with Spencer Jones, oh, well, he's too old for a prospect. He's 24 years old. He's in AAA. I mean, Aaron Judge came up at 25 years old. And look at the career. And now I'm not comparing the two. Naturally, he gets those comparisons based on body type, based on that larger than life type of center fielder. You're not used to guys the size of Spencer Jones patrolling the outfield and playing it as smoothly as he does. And he has that type of unicorn power. Aaron Boone would use that word about Giancarlo Stanton. When Spencer Jones gets into one, it can fly, and you don't teach that. That's something with his size, with his frame, with his swing, that he can hone. I think the biggest thing with Spencer Jones, he has been at Double A now too long to the point where they need to promote him. He's putting up a 900 OPS. You have to promote him to Triple A. If he shows even a market improvement in his strikeout rate at Triple A, it's not like he needs to conquer that level. He just needs to show those little refinements in his game. He'll be big league caliber because you don't have to necessarily come up to the big leagues and be a star. Aaron Judge, if we want to make that comparison, came up to the major leagues and hit 179 in the first stretch back in 2016, and then followed it up with the Rookie of the Year MVP caliber season in 2017. Spencer Jones is on the cusp, but I think the Yankees aren't looking for anything numerically now. They're just looking for, okay, you made all these adjustments with your swing. What's that going to look like? What's that going to induce? And we'll see over the next few weeks.
I covered Spencer Jones at Vanderbilt for a year, and I feel like the conversations that we hear now about the strikeout rate is the same issue that he had in college. So it's like a little bit concerning to me that it's been what, like 3 years, and he's still kind of like with the same issues, but the power is incredible, and he does honestly look just like Stanton and Judge when you stand next to him. So the three of them on one team would honestly be crazy. All right, moving right along. Let's move to another set of right-handed pitchers. Joe, we'll start with you. For the Mets, Jonah Tong. What, this name also has come up a little bit. What have you seen from him?
I think this is everybody's favorite Mets prospect now, and he's one of the biggest rising pitchers in all of minor league baseball. Coming into the season, I had him as the 7th ranked prospect in the system, and I thought I was high at the time, and clearly I just was not high enough. Jonah Tong has absolutely dominated the Double-A level this year. ERA of 1.73. He leads all of minor league baseball with 115 strikeouts in. It's so fun to watch this guy pitch. He's got the same build and delivery, and he's even spoke about this, so I could drop the name. Like it looks like Tim Lincecum in every sense of the word. It's a fastball. It'll sit 93 to 95, up to 97, and it's got that plus induced vertical break and that ride on it. Like that really makes the fastball jump on hitters. He's got an old school 12-6 curveball. He introduced a Vulcan changeup this year, which has been a swing and miss pitch for him. And he's hammering out a little command with the cutter and a hard slider. So there are a few things still for Jonah to do, but he has reached unanimous top 100 prospect in baseball territory. And for some, he's ranked inside of the top 50. So this is a real big player development win, considering he was a 7th round pick in 2022 out of a high school in Canada. So just big credit to the Mets player development system, and obviously Jonah for putting it all together.
Also, one of the guys I'm excited to see when he finally gets up to the bigs. Let's talk about Bryce Cunningham, high A, Hudson Valley. Spend a little time on the injured list, but Emmanuel, what do you know about him?
And not quite Ben Hess's size, but close, 6'5", 230. And like Spencer Jones, we're talking about a Vanderbilt product. And whenever you come through that program, justifiably, there's hype about you. 2nd round pick last year for the Yankees, Bryce Cunningham. And he spent a lot of time in college, interestingly enough, as a relief pitcher. But his last year, he was a full-time starter. And now the Yankees are building him up as a starter in the minor leagues. And you would think that they would be cautious with a guy like that, who was more of a relief pitcher early in his college career. Now he's going deeper into games. The reason he's been going so deep into games pre-injury was he was so efficient. And he's got command of 4 pitches, and he's getting all these quick innings time after time after time. And you look up, he's in the 7th inning. It's not because the Yankees aren't being careful with him. It's because he's been so pitch efficient, maybe based on his time as a relief pitcher. But Cunningham's a guy, his numbers have been so otherworldly at Hudson Valley. I can see a world where he's had this upper body injury. He's been out the last couple of weeks. Maybe he gets back and goes right to Somerset. Maybe he spends not that much more time in Hudson Valley. It reminds me of a position player who went through a similar thing. Austin Wells was at Hudson Valley a few years back and got hurt, and then spent his time out, rehabbed, and all of a sudden he was in Somerset. They didn't send him back to Hudson Valley. I think Cunningham's been that good where he's too good for high A, and we could see a test run of what he can do at the Double-A level against some of the best prospects in baseball. So Cunningham's really refined. Command of 4 pitches. He's been very pitch efficient. Now he's hurt. It's nothing too serious. When he gets back, I'd have my eye on whether they send him right to Somerset.
ERA under 2, 47 strikeouts over 8 games before that time on the IL. So, like you said, really excited to see him. Let's move on to our final set of prospects. We'll start with you, Joe. We're going to talk about Drew Gilbert, AAA Syracuse. I also covered this guy at Tennessee. So fun to watch, so athletic. What do we know about him?
So the Mets got Gilbert in the trade that sent Justin Verlander back to Houston. And when the Mets got him, he was considered to be one of the top prospects in the Mets system. He came in and, lit AA on fire. But then when you go back to 2024, he had a hamstring injury that kind of lingered and repeated on itself a little bit. And he missed most of 2024. And then you circle back here in 2025, and the numbers just haven't been there for him with any level of consistency. He's only hitting 237. He has a 701 OPS. On the positive side, this is a guy that really puts the ball in play. He doesn't strike out. He's able to draw walks. And unlike Benj, who I spoke about before, that needs to learn to pull the ball, Gilbert is as pure of a pull ball hitter as you could find. Unfortunately, the results aren't following with what is under the hood necessarily for him. And if that's something that's not going to pick up in the immediate future, I begin to question if Drew Gilbert is a future everyday outfielder, or is he more of one of those high energy? Because as you said, Nick, you cover him at Tennessee, you know how high energy a player this is. That fits the mold of a fourth outfielder, which is not the most exciting outcome in the world, but we've seen what Tyrone Taylor has brought to the Mets. If you have a good fourth outfielder that can handle all three spots and do a little bit with the bat, it's an exciting and important player to have to fill out a roster.
Also, personality wise, I can see him fitting in with like this Mets team, the way they just carry themselves and the fun they have. But yeah, definitely got to pick it up offensively. All right, Emmanuel, your final prospect is a shortstop, Roderick Arias, currently in low A Tampa. What insight do you have?
Picking it up offensively, branching off that last prospect, and I think that's what people are looking for with Arias. Pick it up offensively and justify the hype. Now, Arias, what we have to remember, the Yankees signed him out of the Dominican Republic 3 years back. They gave him $4 million, and that's a lot of money to give an international signing. That reminds me of what they gave Jason Dominguez. Not quite that level of hype, but there was a lot of hype surrounding Arias. He was deemed the #1 international prospect at the time that the Yankees signed him. The first 2 pro seasons for Arias, he had a wrist injury and a thumb injury. So I take those results with a grain of salt. Those aren't easy things to get through, especially when you're swinging a bat. So last year, I look at as the first full test for him in the minor leagues, first full pro season. He didn't play that well, but he picked it up first half to second half. He also showed plate discipline that I don't think maybe people expected after watching his first half. Made far too many errors. He's been playing short. He's been playing second. He was also teammates with George Lombard. So they had to figure out, who's the shortstop here. And some of the shine has fallen off Arias because of what Lombard has done and how quickly he's risen through the ranks. But Arias now has been disappointing in 2025. What I would look at again, will the bat come around? Will he start to impact the ball? Because he's hitting below 200, but his plate discipline is better than expected. He's got a 312 on base percentage, even though he's got, a 186 batting average. So Arias, he's been a late bloomer. We'll see, but he hasn't really come around at the rate in which the Yankees expected. Only 20 years old, but the time is sort of ticking as to whether he's going to be a guy that could be that future franchise cornerstone that maybe he was pinned as. I'm not sure if they should have pinned him that way when they signed him, but time's ticking in that regard. Can he be a useful big league player? Sure, but that wasn't what was labeled as when they signed him.
All right, guys, that's all the prospects I'm going to give you, but I have one more question. It's going to go to both of you, but I'll start with Joe. Which team do you think's future looks the brightest when you look at this group of guys?
I mean, right now, I think you have to go with the Mets. If you just look at MLB pipeline, the Mets have 5 top 100 prospects. The Yankees have 1. And we didn't even talk about someone like Ryan Clifford, who was a top 100 prospect and probably is just outside at this point in time. And, it's not that top 100 prospect lists are everything, but they're something. And where the Mets have grown so much on a pitching development, there are names like Zach Thornton, names like Jack Wenninger. There's names that are even beyond ones that necessarily we covered here And, they may fit in the middle of the Mets system. I think the Mets system right now is probably as deep as it's been in 5 years. And they're also supplementing that with high-end talent that are top 100 type guys. So I will take the Mets over the Yankees, and I look forward to Emmanuel's counter.
I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing you say the Mets and then thinking of my rebuttal to that. My rebuttal would be I can't dispute the rankings. The rankings are the rankings. We don't know how they're going to pan out. And I think the Mets probably are a little deeper because these guys haven't gotten to the big league level yet. I think the Yankees' advantage right now, a lot of their prospects we've been talking about are at the big league level. Anthony Volpe, Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Ben Rice, Clark Schmidt, Will Warren. Like a lot of these guys are contributing in a big way to the Yankees' success in 2025 at the major league level. So that's the edge I would give the Yankees. Can some of these guys work out? I still have high hopes for Spencer Jones as a possible big league talent, whether it's with the Yankees or elsewhere. I think Arias could potentially overcome some of his early struggles. And the Yankees pitching would be their strength at the minor league level. They continue to churn out quality options in the pitching department, and they continue to stockpile and stockpile and stockpile. But I would say the Yankees' edge, look at the 2025 team right now. Those are prospects that have now panned out at the major league level.
Mets and Yankees both hoping their prospects can add. They might need a little of that help this season. Who knows? Hopefully things start to go up for both of those teams. But guys, that's all the time we have for us here today on New York 4 to 7. Thank you so much for watching. For Joe DeMayo and Emmanuel Berbari, I'm Niki Lattarulo. We will see you back here next time.